Good morning. I'm Michael Kovnat, and this is the Next Big Idea Daily, your shortcut to the smartest new nonfiction, one big idea at a time. Make sure you're following the show on your favorite platform, and if you like it, please leave us a rating and review so others can find it too. Now, I don't know about you, but all the talk of disruption lately is starting to feel, well, a little too disruptive. I mean, if move fast and break things just leaves us with a bunch of broken things, is that really progress? Today's author thinks it can be if we take the long view. Scott D. Anthony is a clinical professor of strategy at Dartmouth's Tuck School of Business, and in his new book, Epic Disruptions, he looks back at history's biggest technological upheavals, from the printing press to AI, to uncover the patterns that help us not just survive disruption, but thrive in it. Scott joins us to share some of his big ideas right after this quick break.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm always looking for ways to show my cat how much I love her. And with Fancy Feast gems, I can pamper her whenever I want with a savory gravy on top of a gourmet mousse pâté. The pyramid shape makes serving simple, so all I have to do is peel and plate to make mealtime feel extra fancy. And with 2 entrees in every pack, it's easy to turn every day into the extraordinary. Fancy Feast gems.
Hi, my name is Scott Anthony. I'm a clinical professor of strategy at the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College and the author of Epic Disruptions, 11 Innovations That Shaped Our Modern World. The book honors and extends the legacy of Clay Christensen, the father of the idea of disruptive innovation. I met Clay when I was a student of his in 2000. I instantly, intellectually fell in love with the concept of disruption. Over the next 25 years, I researched it, wrote about it, practiced it, led a company that advised around it, invested based on it, and now teach it. So let me share with you 5 big ideas from Epic Disruptions. Big idea 1. Disruptive innovators transform the world. Let me tell you the story of Florence Nightingale. Now, you probably are thinking of a nurse. You might have a visual of the lady with the lamp, and that's part of Florence's story, but there is so much more. Shocked by her experience in the Scutari Hospital during the Crimean War, she developed a series of analyses, brilliantly visualized in polar area charts that showed the power of prevention and proper hygiene in hospitals. She wrote books that explained the essence of nursing that anyone could buy and read, and set up schools to train nurses. This is disruptive innovation. Nightingale enabled a broader population to improve health standards and living conditions, focusing on prevention rather than treatment. Many of the things that we take for granted today, such as modern sewage systems or having light and fresh air when people are recovering, trace back to Nightingale's work. Disruptive innovators transform existing markets and create new ones by making the complicated simple and the expensive affordable. They open up markets to broader populations that historically lacked wealth or specialized skills. They literally change the world. Big idea 2. Every story of disruptive innovation has heroes. Let's go to the year 1437. Johannes Gutenberg is in Strasbourg. He's working on something. No, it's not the printing press, at least not yet. He's working on a trinket, a mirror that could capture the essence of the Holy Spirit during a planned pilgrimage in 1439. He's not working alone. He's part of a team. Well, it turned out that the pilgrimage was called off because of an outbreak of the bubonic plague. That was, of course, bad for many people, but good for the world because Gutenberg and his team went in a different direction. They met someone named Konrad Sasbach, who had a really innovative wooden press. In 1440, they combined that with a range of other things to create a working version of the printing press. Of course, to commercialize it, they needed more. They needed customers. They needed scale. That meant they needed funding. They found a merchant named Johann Fust who gave them the capital to build their business. Fust ultimately sued them and took control of the technology, but that's not the primary point here. The point is that every story of disruption has a protagonist, but there are multiple people involved in it. Every story has heroes, and that word is plural. So if you have an idea that you think could be disruptive, you're going to need to find people to support you. If you're in an organization that's seeking to have more disruptions, you're going to need to make sure the environment supports the innovators who are going to do the work. Big idea 3. Disruptive innovation is predictably unpredictable. Let me tell you 2 stories from the 1940s and 1950s. The first story starts in 1947. In that year, a trio of researchers at Bell Labs developed a breakthrough that would change the world: the transistor. Their goal was to create a technology that would replace vacuum tubes in communications networks. That happened, but the path to get there was unexpected. You see, the transistor was an imperfect product in its early days. It had benefits, of course. It was small, it was rugged, it didn't give off heat, but it also was unreliable. You'd have to redesign a system if you're going to use it. It just wasn't good enough to plug into communications networks. The first commercial market was in hearing aids. In 1952, the Sonotone 1010 had a transistor in it. A hearing aid is a great market for a limited product. The fact that the transistor doesn't give off heat is a huge benefit for people who are wearing battery packs on their waists. The fact that it's rugged is incredibly beneficial. The limitations really just don't matter. A couple years later, 95% of hearing aids were powered by transistors and the market had exploded. This is a very predictable pattern. You never know exactly where disruptive innovation is going to start. Generally, however, you know it will be in a place that values it despite its limitations, that finds it perfectly imperfect. That's typically on the fringe of an existing market or in a completely new setting. Around the same time that Sonotone was taking license to the transistor technology, Julia Child was dealing with a surprising setback. Yes, Julia Child. When we think of disruptive innovations, we don't think of chefs. But Child changed the world of cooking, making it much easier for people to cook great French dishes in their own homes. In 1951, the French chef failed the final exam at Le Cordon Bleu. That same year, she met Simca Beck and Louisette Berthold. The two were working on a book that would bring French recipes to an American audience. They asked Julia to join the team and bring her voice to the project. She agreed. Mastering the Art of French Cooking came out 10 years later. Success was not a straight line. There were 3 different publishers and 1 near-death experience in November 1959, where at the very last minute, publisher number 2 said, "This book cannot be published." This is predictable. Every story of disruptive innovation has twists and turns and fumbles and false steps and things that look and feel like failures. You cannot predict the specifics. You can predict they will happen. What separates success from failure is not how good the original idea was, it's how the disruptive innovator deals with the journey. The key lesson here is when you're trying to understand disruption, focus on patterns like this. Also, recognize a snapshot. A single moment can deceive you. Pull back and watch the full movie to understand disruptive change. Julia Child ultimately passed her test at Le Cordon Bleu, by the way, and in my opinion, her chocolate mousse recipe is perfection. Big idea 4. Disruption casts a shadow. Look, I believe in the transformational power of disruption, but the more I've worked with and studied disruption, the more I've recognized there are 2 sides to it. It's very good for some, it can be less good for others. Particularly in the middle of a disruptive change, there can be a lot of messiness. Let's go back to the 1920s and look at a battle for the soul of the streets of many cities. Henry Ford was obsessed. His vision was to create a car for the great multitudes. In 1908, he rolled out the Model T. It cost $890, or about $30,000 in today's terms. By 1924, the assembly line and lowering employee turnover through paying good wages allowed Ford to dramatically decrease that cost to $260, or about $5,000 in today's terms. Sales of automobiles took off. This was good for some, but less good for others. You see, cities were designed for people, not for cars. There were no traffic signals. There were no rules and norms governing who could do what, and sadly, people were getting hit, injured, and sometimes killed. Two sides broke out. The motorists said the problem here are the pedestrians. We're going to brand them as jaywalkers, jay being slang for a country bumpkin who wasn't very educated. They had the Boy Scouts go and give out cards in cities telling people to cross at designated areas. The pedestrians fought back. They sought to brand the motorists as flivverboobs. Flivver was slang at the time for cars, and boob, well, that's pretty universal. You know who won the battle. In 1924, a New York traffic warden said, "We now know about 80% of incidents are caused by jaywalkers." By the late 1920s, the word flivverboob had basically disappeared. Disruption always casts a shadow. The middle can be very messy. You have to understand it, or it will swallow you. Big idea 5. Success with disruption requires patient perseverance, often over very long periods of time. People talk today about the accelerating pace of change, and there's a lot to it. But we forget when we see a big breakthrough, there's often been decades of work before it. For example, in 2022, OpenAI introduced ChatGPT. It became the fastest technology in history to get to 100 million users. But by some dimensions, that technology was 67 years old, tracing back to a 1956 conference at Dartmouth College where the term AI was coined. Around the same time as that conference at Dartmouth happened, a chemist at Corning called Don Stuckey had a surprising discovery. He accidentally set his kiln to a temperature that was just way too hot. He expected a gooey mess. Instead, he discovered the first synthetic glass ceramic. Corning commercialized this in a line of kitchenware and in parallel launched Project Muscle to make the material clear. The result was something 14 times stronger than normal glass, but Corning couldn't make it thin. It thought one market could be automobile windshields, but tests with crash test dummies showed that the head would not survive a collision with the glass. It was that strong. In 1971, after $300 million of investment in today's terms, Corning put the project on ice. 2007. Steve Jobs is getting ready to launch the iPhone. He picks up the prototype of the phone. He looks at it. The plastic that was the screen just didn't appeal to his aesthetic sense. He wanted glass. He knew Corning had provided an innovative screen for Motorola's Razr phone. You see, even though Corning shut the project down, it kept experimenting and exploring. It made the glass thinner. It called it Gorilla Glass. Steve Jobs came to Corning's headquarters, talked to CEO Wendell Weeks, and said, "I want this. I want it at scale, and I want it fast." Weeks said, "Great, but we can't do it at scale, and we can't do it fast." Steve Jobs turned on his reality distortion field and without blinking said, "Yes, you can. You can do it." And Corning did. By 2024, 8 billion devices had screens with Gorilla Glass. The lesson here is that when it comes to disruption, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable because it almost always takes a lot longer than you think. Let me close with one final thought. In 1620, Sir Francis Bacon wrote that there had been 3 technologies where you can draw a clear line before and after. The printing press, the compass, gunpowder. Those 3 technologies that changed the world stretched over 1,600 years. Today, it feels like there's a big disruptive development every 1,600 seconds. Autonomous vehicles, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing, and those are just the ones that begin with A. How do we make sense of a world where change is truly the only constant? Well, Clay Christensen used to joke that his wife would say the simple line diagram that he developed to show how disruptive change happened was etched onto his glasses. Everywhere he looked, he saw it. I mostly wear contact lenses, so that same model is fused onto my retinas. It's there everywhere that I look, and it helps me see the world more clearly. That's the power of a good model. That's the power of history.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, everyone, you can get a copy of Epic Disruptions using the link in the episode notes. That's our show for the day. If you got something out of it, please leave us a rating or review so others can find it. And big news, the Next Big Idea Club just selected Brené Brown's new book, Strong Ground, as its pick for the season. That means if you join now, you'll get a signed copy of the book, an invitation to a private Q&A with Brené, and a regular pipeline of exciting nonfiction sent right to your door. So go to nextbigideaclub.com and use the code DAILY for a special discount. That's nextbigideaclub.com and use the code DAILY. I'm Michael Kovnat. See you tomorrow.